The Berlin crowd was screaming at the top of their lungs, until one shocking moment silenced every single person in the stadium. A young tennis star collapsed to the ground in tears, while her opponent did something that nobody, not the fans, not the umpire, not even the commentators, could believe. For a few unforgettable seconds, the match itself no longer mattered. What happened next was so emotional that thousands of fans rose to their feet, many fighting back tears. This wasn't just one of the most unforgettable moments in tennis history. It was a powerful reminder that humanity can still be greater than victory. So, what exactly happened on that Berlin court that left the entire world speechless? The German capital was buzzing with an electric energy that only a world-class tennis tournament can generate. The Rotterdam blue clay of the Berlin Open, the only one of its kind on the tour, shimmered under the intense glare of the afternoon sun. This was the stage for a quarterfinal clash that pitted raw power against elegant precision. On one side of the net stood Linda Noskova, the Czech prodigy who had already made a name for herself by taking down established stars with her thunderous groundstrokes and fearless attitude. She was a tempest in human form, her game fueled by a relentless aggression that left her opponents scrambling. Her presence on the court was formidable. Her intense blue eyes seemed to see right through you, and her powerful build allowed her to dictate play from the baseline. The pressure of being the favorite didn't seem to bother her. Opposite her stood the Philippines' own pride, Alex Eala. Alex brought a different kind of energy to the court. It was an energy of grace under pressure, a quiet determination that has been the hallmark of her rapid rise through the ranks of professional tennis. Her style was fluid, almost balletic, as she glided across the court, her backhand a thing of beauty. Unlike Noskova's brute force, Eala relied on her exceptional court sense, her ability to read the game and construct points with the patience of a grandmaster. The world was watching, not just for the tennis, but to see how these two young gladiators would handle the immense weight of expectation. The match started as everyone expected, a relentless exchange of heavy blows. The first set was a tie-break war, with Noskova's power just edging out Eala's clever placement. The Czech star took it, and the roar from the crowd was deafening. But Eala is not someone who backs down. She dug her heels into the clay, dialed up her focus, and dismantled Noskova in the second set with a masterclass of tactical brilliance. She forced Noskova into uncomfortable positions, opening up the court with sharp angles and dropping delicate shots that left the Czech star charging the net in vain. The momentum had swung. The energy in the stadium was now palpable, a mix of awe and anxiety. The Berlin crowd, famous for its passionate and knowledgeable tennis fans, was on the edge of their seats. The match had become a stunning display of the sport's beauty and brutality. Both players were pushing each other to their absolute limits, their lungs burning and legs aching. The battle had turned into a war of attrition, and the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. It was the perfect setup for a defining moment. But no one could have predicted the form it would take. With the score locked at 5-5 in the decisive third set, the atmosphere was unbearable. Every point felt like a mini-major. The crowd was no longer just cheering. They were living and breathing each rally. It was in one of these epic exchanges that the unthinkable happened. Linda Noskova, chasing down a perfectly placed drop shot from Eala, threw herself at the ball with every ounce of power she possessed. Her body, a coiled spring of athleticism, lunged forward. But this time, the immediate sound wasn't the satisfying thwack of a racket meeting ball. It was the sickening, unnatural crunch of a player's ankle twisting on the unpredictable clay. Noskova crumpled to the ground in a heap, her racket flying out of her hand. A collective gasp rippled through the stadium, a wave of dread that washed over the 5,000 spectators. For a moment, there was stillness. The roar of the crowd died down to a low murmur of concerned voices. The umpire rushed down from his chair, and the tournament physio sprinted onto the court, carrying a heavy medical bag. Linda was lying on the court, clutching her right leg, her face contorted in a mask of pure agony. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not just from the physical pain, but from the crushing psychological blow of a season-ending injury happening in the middle of a career-defining match. Her dream was collapsing around her, and the entire world was watching. The scene was heartbreaking. The crowd watched in stunned silence, their own emotions mirroring the distress of the young athlete. Alex Eala stood at the other end of the court, a solitary figure. She had just won the point and was now leading 6-5, but there was no triumph in her posture. She looked on with visible concern, her own competitive fire temporarily extinguished by the worry for her opponent. The physio worked frantically, assessing the damage as Noskova sobbed. The broadcaster's camera zoomed in, and the tennis world saw a glimpse of a teenager's pain far more intimate than any victory could ever be. Linda's face was buried in her hands as the medical team tried to convince her to retire from the match. The rulebook and the tournament doctor were clear. It was a serious ankle injury, and continuing could cause permanent damage. The future of her career was on the line. As they helped her to her feet, limping heavily, the stadium held its breath. This was the moment of heartbreak. The moment where one player's journey ends in tears, a casualty of the unforgiving nature of elite sport. The crowd, sensing the end of a fantastic match, gave a polite but somber applause, ready to bid farewell to Noskova. It was over, or so they thought, as Linda Noskova, supported by the physio, began to hobble off the court. The story was supposed to end. The match would be declared a retirement, and Alex Eala would advance to the semifinals. It was the fair, predictable, and correct outcome under the rules of the sport. But as Linda passed the net, a scene began to unfold that no scriptwriter could have ever conceived. Alex Eala, the woman who was technically the victor, did not walk to her chair to celebrate. Instead, she walked to the net, her face etched with a solemnity that was beyond her years. The entire stadium watched, confused, as Eala stopped her opponent. In a moment that sent a jolt of pure electricity through the stadium, Alex Eala gently pulled Linda Noskova into an embrace. It wasn't a quick, obligatory tap on the back. It was a genuine, heartfelt hug. She held her, whispering words of comfort that the microphones couldn't pick up. The gesture was so powerful, so raw, and so utterly unexpected that it seemed to freeze time. The crowd, which had been on its feet ready to applaud Noskova's exit, sat back down. They were no longer spectators to a tennis match. They were witnesses to a profound human moment. Alex then did something even more incredible. She took a step towards the umpire's chair and then pointed at the court. She was talking, pointing to the ground, and making a gesture of a player stepping and twisting. It became clear what she was doing. She was arguing that Linda had been injured not by a fall of her own doing, but by the playing surface. The blue clay of Berlin was notorious for being a bit slick, and for a split second, Eala's concern for her opponent overrode her desire for victory. She was trying to stop the match, but not because she was tired or frustrated, but because she felt the conditions were unsafe. The umpire, looking flustered, tried to explain the rules, but Eala wasn't having it. The sight of her championing her injured rival in front of the world was staggering. The Berlin crowd sat in a bewildered silence. They had seen great tennis, but this was different. The 5,000 people in the stands, known for their dramatic reactions, were utterly and completely speechless. They were frozen, their jaws dropped, their eyes glued to the scene. In an era defined by cold competition and million-dollar contracts, a 17-year-old had just shown the entire world that humanity still holds a place in sport. The confusion on court was absolute. Alex Eala's argument with the umpire continued, her voice pleading, her gestures frantic. She was not trying to gain an advantage, she was trying to ensure the integrity of the contest. She was trying to tell everyone that Linda Noskova hadn't lost the point fairly. She had been a victim of a freak accident on the court. The linespeople, the officials, and the tournament supervisor were called to the court, creating a huddle of confusion in the middle of the Berlin stadium. Linda Noskova, still in pain and crying, was momentarily forgotten in this bizarre, unprecedented debate. Alex, the competitor, was fighting for her rival. The rules were black and white. A player injured by a fall during play cannot claim a hindrance. The point stands. The match ends. But Alex Eala, with tears in her own eyes, continued to plead. Her voice was getting louder on the broadcast, and for the first time, the crowd could hear her. She didn't slip. The court is dangerous. She twisted her ankle trying to plant. It's not fair, she cried. This wasn't the selfish tantrum of a celebrity athlete. It was the passionate outcry of a teenager who felt something was fundamentally wrong. The crowd, which had been silent, began to stir. A murmur started to build, a low buzz of agreement. The scene had profoundly shifted the dynamic of the tournament. It was no longer about who was winning or losing. It was about sportsmanship, fair play, and the very soul of the game. Then, in a move that will be discussed in tennis circles for generations, the tournament supervisor made a shocking announcement. He declared that the point would be replayed. It was an unprecedented rule-breaking decision. He cited the dangerous playing conditions and the spirit of the game. The stadium erupted, not in a roar of excitement, but in a wave of shocked gasps and tears. The announcement was a testament to the power of Eala's stand. Linda Noskova, tears still streaming down her face, was given the chance to continue. She was allowed to walk back to the baseline, to try and serve out a game that would keep her in the match. The impossible had just happened. A 17-year-old had just changed the rules of the match with a simple act of compassion. The crowd rose to their feet, not for a point, but to applaud the two young women standing on the court. This was the moment history was made. The scene was so beautiful, so pure, that it moved thousands of people to tears. The final chapter of this unprecedented match was almost an anti-climax after the drama that had just occurred. Linda Noskova, battling against pain and the emotional turmoil of the last few minutes, managed to win the replayed point. But it wasn't a moment of glory. She then, with immense grace and dignity, walked to the net and announced her retirement from the match. She couldn't continue. The injury was too severe. She had fought the internal battle and the physical pain, but her body had given out. But the world didn't care about the final result. The scoreline, Alex Eala advancing to the semifinals via retirement, was a mere footnote. The real victory belonged to both athletes. As Linda Noskova was given a standing ovation as she hobbled off, the applause wasn't just for her fighting spirit. It was a celebration of her resilience in the incredible moment of sportsmanship she had just been a part of. The cameras then focused on Alex Eala. She was sitting in her chair, her head in her hands, overcome with emotion. She was crying. The pressure, the concern, and the sheer weight of what she had just done had finally hit her. The Berlin crowd, once left speechless, now found their voice, giving her a thunderous standing ovation that lasted for minutes. They chanted her name. They were not just applauding a semifinalist, they were applauding a hero. In the post-match interview, Alex Eala's words were beautiful. "Tennis is just a game," she said, her voice trembling. "Linda's health and her future are more important than any point. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try." Her actions and her words echoed far beyond the stadium in Berlin. Social media exploded. She was praised by former champions, athletes from other sports, and millions of fans worldwide. She had provided a masterclass in humanity. She had proven that true strength lies not in how hard you hit a ball, but in how you treat others. The match ended in a retirement, a fairly normal occurrence in the sport, but the scene had been anything but. It became a symbol of integrity, compassion, and the true spirit of sport. Alex Eala and Linda Noskova had not just left a Berlin crowd speechless, they had given the world a powerful story of respect and friendship that will be remembered long after the blue clay of Berlin has been swept away. If you enjoyed this shocking sports update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to World Zone right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.